In Hosea, in the Old Testament, chapter 4, verse 6, it reads, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." A better translation would be, "My people are cut off for the lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, and thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy children." Now I understand the biblical principle here in the Old Testament. You can also apply it in the New Testament, but not under the law. The same principles. This verse and the surrounding verses teaches, "My people are cut off for lack of knowledge." And I've been getting questions almost daily concerning all this UFO, extraterrestrial, possible evidence that the U.S. military is holding back and not communicating what they might know and what they might have. You've seen all the the information, whether it's conspiracy theory or not. If you hear rumblings in the background, it's because another storm wave is passing through and there's a lot of thunder going on. Hopefully we don't lose power. Area 51 and Roswell and all these other locations. I first want to say, do I believe in aliens? I absolutely do. But not what you think, or not what most people think, what aliens are. But there's been a boatload of lies. That's the only way I could put it. Especially the last 300 to 400 years concerning this topic. How it began and what it led to is what most people don't know about. It's like when I first taught on the Last Day series. The introduction of Margaret MacDonald and Jesuit priests and so forth. Darby and others that put together, supposedly based on a vision a young girl had of what the last days would look like. And it developed a Christian science fiction story, as I say so often, which stuck. And Christians been so vulnerable in believing those lies. Now, everyone thinks it's the truth, almost everyone. Same thing concerning UFOs and extraterrestrials. The enemy, the unseen enemy, working with seen enemies, have been able to infiltrate lives and minds. Not only the people that are not believers, but believers also. Hey, we all like a good science fiction story. We all convince ourselves, well, just maybe it's true. There's a small possibility. Now, I might turn this into 2 or 3 messages, but now I'm going to read something to you. I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to skip through a lot of it. But give you a very brief introduction that sets the groundwork on another science fiction story, not so much put together by believers, but non-believers, for a reason and for a purpose. let me pick up where I'm going to start. It's amazing to me that the things man believe in this generation have come from men who presume imagined and just outright made up theories concerning aliens and extraterrestrials. Where did it all come from? The one thing you know, that the belief in extraterrestrials didn't just start in the 21st century. Most people think it has. No, this goes back centuries. And it didn't originate here either. Several events happened in the 17th century which impacted the beliefs in extraterrestrial life. First, the replacement of the geocentric theory with heliocentric theory. Created a gradual groundswell and speculation regarding multiple inhabited solar systems. And secondly, the telescope was invented in 1608 so men could see the moon, had mountains, and what looked to be like seas, and that the other planets had moons, so they obliged the idea that Earth-like similarities meant that there had to be life on planets. Another assumption, so they went on assuming again, and then finally during this time a subtle undercurrent of religious occult thought added fuel to the fire. As a result, the next 3 centuries witnessed a rapid mushrooming of the belief in life on other planets. The Reverend John J. Kavanaugh, Professor Emeritus at the University of Notre Dame, and a recognized world authority on the subject of the debate on extraterrestrial life forms, affirms that not only were astronomical technology and the heliocentric theory important contributing factors, but a supportive shift in the religious and philosophical mentality of the period was crucial. One of the first men to write about the physical appearance of aliens. Now, what is a heliocentric theory? The heliocentric theory, the shortcut explanation of it, or definition of it, is it places the sun at the center of the solar system. Now, I'm not saying that's true or not true at this point. We're all led to believe that it is. That is the so-called science. But that's not the subject matter tonight. Christian Huygens, Huygens, who lived between 1629 to 1695, was a Dutch physicist and astronomer who said, "The world is my country. Science is my religion," and he claimed to be a Protestant Christian. Huygens wrote the first work ever exclusively dedicated to the question of intelligent alien life and possible physical appearance. He said, "But when we come to meddle with the shape of these creatures and consider the incredible variety that is even in those of the different parts of this earth, I must then confess that I think it beyond the force of imagination to arrive at any knowledge in a matter of or reach probability concerning the figures of these planetary animals. I make no doubt, but the planetary worlds have as wonderful a variety as we. Not men perhaps like ours, but some creatures or others endured with reason." That was all the way back in the 1600s. They're already thinking this way. The key words in this supposition are imagination, probability. Imagination, probability. That's what he was doing. He was imagining it And then he concluded it was probable that there was life on other planets and other locations within our solar system. He didn't test anything. He just imagined and then speculated purely on assumption and human reason. Something that all pluralists are guilty of. So in 1745, a new paradigm came along called cosmic pluralism. It was the first time in history where Spiritism, extraterrestrialism, and Christianity merged into a new system of thought. The founder of this was Swedish scientist, mathematician, and false prophet by the name of Emanuel Swedenborg, which lived between 1688 and 1772. He was revered by many as one of the greatest mystics of all time, and he claimed to be chosen by God to unveil the scriptures. His contact came via angels and spirits, which live on Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, Saturn, Venus, and the moon. He said, "It has been granted me of the Lord to discourse and converse with spirits and angels who are from other earths." Kind of sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? If you go back to the teachings on Muhammad and his visitations. Where was I? It has been granted of the Lord to discourse and converse with spirits and angels who are from other earths, with some for a day, with some for a week, and with some for months, to be instructed by them concerning the earth, concerning the lives, customs, and worships of the inhabitants thereof. Swedenborg admitted these are the spirits by which men are possessed. Swedenborg's revelations not only resulted in the creation of a new Christianity, but also captured the attention of the occultists who formed both official and unofficial Masonic rites. How many of you even heard of this? How many of you even heard of these individuals? Like I said, it all sounds familiar, but it's just a different type of Christian science fiction. It's a type of Christian science fiction that also cross over to non-believers believing it and still not claiming to be Christians. In honor of these new teachings, Swedenborg also represents one of the cogs in the wheel of modern esotericism. esotericism, which, once again, a very short definition is to understand something that only a selected few have knowledge of. They have this so-called special knowledge. The cogs in the wheel of modern esotericism. In the 19th and 20th century revival and repackaging of witchcraft into a New Age occult movement. And today the Center for the Study of Esotericism awards doctorates and master's degrees in Western esotericism. The course is described as including occultism, mesmerism, spiritualism, the ancient wisdom tradition, and ceremonial magic, and para-Masonic orders. They claim they're providing an inspiration to contemporary thinkers and practitioners in the arts, education, and medicine. The students begin with a historical survey course entitled The Western Esoteric Traditions in a compulsory core module in order to appreciate the broad scope and common features of this spirituality. When you look at this and the subjects they teach, Hermeticism, which involves the occult and alchemy, for instance, and Rosicrucianism. Hermeticism is spelled Hermeticism, in case this is ever getting transcribed, that's why I'm spelling it out. And Rosicrucianism is Rosicrucianism. Anism. They teach Hermeticism and Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, Romantic, natural science, and modern esotericism. You see that it's really all about the occult. The Blavatsky Trust, the primary sponsor of the doctorate program, says their objective is to promote study and research in the field of laws of nature and the powers latent in the man. That's the occult and witchcraft in a nutshell. The Philosophical Society, the society is a grooming of ground for elitists who promote Antichrist philosophies. Their logo uses the serpent biting its tail and the hexagram star symbol, the telltale signs of its real spiritual roots. Emanuel Swedenborg was one of the first mystics to claim contact with beings from another world. His endorsement of extraterrestrial life and the incorporation of the belief that a metaphysical religious system helped revive its true connections with the ancient gods and mystery religions by the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. The occult elitists recognized this as a system of wisdom comfortable to their objectives, and it helped shape the modern concept that aliens are beings with advanced, higher knowledge. So wisdom doesn't come down from above, but it's an earthly, unspiritual, demonic. It's nearly impossible to separate alienism and UFOlogy of occult overtones. Some of the prominent men of the 1700s, some of these are you're going to recognize if you're a citizen of this country. Some of the prominent men of the 1700s, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Wright, Immanuel Plant, Johann Lamberts, David Rittenhouse, John Adams, Thomas Paine, and Sir William Herschel contributed much to the growth of pluralism. We need to remember that much of the modern science is founded on the Greek philosophical school of naturalism. So, to go from one field to the next, philosophy to astronomy, is not saying a whole lot. The change had more to do with its perception and general acceptance than with any real physical evidence. The reality is the philosophers of the ancient past became the sciences of the present. No 18th century scientists have ever seen an alien, but that didn't stop them from having faith in their reality. In the early 1800s, a new series of books were published that went a long way to help establish extraterrestrial life in the minds of many Christians. Yes, Christians have been programmed and brainwashed just like the rest of the world, especially those who don't know the Word of God. A Presbyterian minister named Thomas Chalmer, Chalmer, who lived between 1780 to 1847, was called Scotland's greatest 19th century churchman. Like many men before him and after, he assumed that the supposed existence of similar Earth-like solar systems indicated life was equally peppered throughout the universe. And just like the men that propagated this lie through assumption and suppositions, he fell right along with Joseph Smith, the founder of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, better known as Mormons, was undoubtedly influenced by the growing social belief in extraterrestrial life. When you couple that with his upbringing in witchcraft and his interest in Freemasonry, he was able to form one of the largest Christian cults in the history of the world. I don't really call it Christian, but let's move on. Just like Emanuel Swedenborg, 85 years prior, Joseph Smith merged the three ideologies into a new Christian religion, which was no more Christian than my sweat socks. In Mormonism, God is an exalted sinner who ascended above the heights of the clouds after becoming like the Most High. Sounds like Isaiah 14:14 and the description of Lucifer. Now, only to the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church, the Latter-day Saints cling to one of the world's most perverted forms of Christianity. It's a masterpiece of demonic crafting, being nothing more than blatant occult doctrine cloaked in an aura of Jesus, God, and family values. It's really hard to find a better example of satanic deception than this cult. How was Smith able to steal Christianity and turn it into a spiritual monstrosity? All you have to do is understand the ancient secrets hidden with Masonry, and how that philosophy came to bear on the professing Christian public of the 1800s, between 1720 and 1835. The Holy Spirit was sweeping through America through those two great awakenings, and these revivals produced hundreds of thousands of born-again Christians like John Wesley, George Whitefield, Jonathan Edwards, Charles Finney, and Peter Cartwright. But of course, Satan was right there to sow tares among the wheat. The way the devil did that is through the guise of a seemingly benevolent fraternity known as Freemasonry. It was easy to fool the Christians who were not rooted and grounded in the Word of God. Freemasonry really started to grow in America in the early 1730s, and they used secret handshakes, tokens, and rituals to teach their secret doctrines. Curiosity of these secrets and the possibility of economic and political success and advancement drew many to join them. And because the so-called craft used the King James Bible in its rituals, many wrongly assumed that it was compatible with Christian doctrine. Freemasonry's secret doctrine was the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, a belief that revered the gods and teachings of all faiths and sought to unite them all under the fraternal umbrella of Masonry. So much of it sounded so right, but unfortunately their ignorance resulted in a whole generations of Christian men and women becoming desensitized to the occult. Such a ridiculous and profound lack of spiritual understanding proved that Bibles weren't being believed or read, or the sermons weren't being preached or listened to. Pastors were dropping the ball, and professing Christians allowed occult philosophy to make inroads into society and the political founding of America. This also helped lay the groundwork for New Age philosophy in America. Masonry had been in America for nearly a century when the Mormon Church was birthed in 1830. Mormonism was the perfect hodgepodge of extraterrestrialism, Masonism, occultism, and Christianity. Its profession of polytheism was able to slide hand in glove with the secret mysteries taught by the Lodge. It had many things in common with Emanuel Swedenborg's church, founded 100 years earlier. Both founders were involved in some form of witchcraft or mysticism. Both religions were based on false angelic revelation. Both felt of God to spread new Christianity. Both espoused extraterrestrial life as gospel truth, and both systems grabbed the attention of occultists and Freemason. The fall into deception could have been avoided if they would have just read and believed the Bible, like the Apostle Paul said, "But though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than that which we have preached to you, let him be accursed." The speculations and false claims continue by men devoid of any real faith in the Bible. William Herschel, an astronomer and telescope engineer and a strong proponent of pluralism, affirms that the possibility of lunar inhabitants was an almost absolute certainty. He claimed that a variety of intelligent creatures had been spotted on the moon, one of which was scientifically dubbed Vespertilio, Vespertillio, Vespertilio Homo, or the man-bat. Running parallel to the mid-1800s with the growing acceptance of alien life was the emerging phenomenon of spiritism or spiritualism. It consisted of things like automatic writing, mediumship, clairvoyant psychic abilities, seances, mesmerism, hypnotism, and channeling. Spiritism is based primarily around necromancy or communication with the dead. Modern Spiritism traces its roots back to 1848 in Hydeville, New York. I remember many years ago in another ministry, pastor there was reading some of the works of Edgar Cayce. And I said to myself back then, there's nothing right about that. Edgar Cayce was a demonic, possessed individual. How do I know that? Experience. Experience all the way back into my teen years, where I witnessed, not just once, but several times, people being possessed, talking in a different language, talking in a different voice, communicating to people that were very sick with formulas and rituals that they should implement to be healed. So I knew immediately this Edgar Cayce nonsense was not of God. I had someone write to me many years ago when I was sick of my back saying, well, you should listen to and practice some of this. And she gave me all kinds of things I should do in an email concerning the things that might help me to improve my health. And it came from an individual that's called, you might have heard him, especially if you're on social media, called medical medium. Supposedly this person receives from a spirit source information how people become healthier and healed from certain diseases. I immediately threw that in the trash, knowing what it is and where it comes from. I remember one time, I was about 18 years old at the time, 18, 19 years old, I don't know, somewhere around there, that someone got possessed with the Spirit to relay information to another person. And once again, I happened to be there. And that once that information was passed on, it made a beeline to where I was across the room because it wanted to speak to me. I immediately shut it up and put a stop to it, knowing the source, knowing it was not anything from God. It was another King Saul moment, in a way. Clairvoyance, psychic abilities, seances, hypnotism, channeling, spiritism is based primarily around necromancy and communication with the dead. Oh, by the way, the part I didn't tell you about is this demonic possessed person that was relaying information on how this person could be healed was supposedly from someone that used to be in the military. And now, from their spirit dead life in another realm, was communicating the things that was necessary for that person to be healed of whatever they were suffering from. That's what I'm saying, you know. You see all these ghost shows and all this nonsense on TV. That is not anything near the real deal. of what demonology is all about. Just reading or listening to ghost stories and hauntings is not necessarily, not even half of it, what demonology is all about. And maybe I'll get into part of that if I continue in this particular mini-series on this subject, including the 4 stages everyone needs to be aware of. Believer and non-believer, even though I don't believe a believer can be possessed. But there's a lot of so-called Christian believers that are not true believers because they don't believe Jesus Christ is the only Son of God that can provide salvation. They could believe that a Buddhist could be saved by believing in Buddha. So there's all kinds of other problems. But the thing is, I speak with the voice of experience of so many things throughout my lifetime that don't have a hard problem of accepting what I'm reading as far as history goes, that most people don't know about it because I know it's real. I've experienced it. I'm skipping over many parts where these people, whether they realize it or not, some did, were communicating with demons. And because of their communication, they believed those demons were just part of an alien from another world that exists somewhere in a different planet, a different solar system, a different part of this universe. And they're here to help. They're here to give us advanced knowledge. It's demonic is what I'm trying to say. Where was I? All this is based primarily around necromancy and communication with the dead. Modern Spiritism traces its roots back to 1848 in Hydeville, New York, where 3 sisters, Leah Margaretta, Kate Fox, are said to have communicated with the spirit of a murdered salesman calling itself Splitfoot. Contact was made by rapping on wood. This is how the term poltergeist evolved, where noisy ghosts from the German pole turned to make a racket, and Geist, which means ghost. The Fox sisters may be revered as the pioneers of the modern religion. But spirits loyalists say that it was Emanuel Swedenborg back in the 16 and 1700s, along with Franz Anton Mesmer, Charles Fourier, and Andrew Jackson Davis as the true forefathers. Spiritism became popular in America in the last quarter of the 19th century, probably because of people trying to reestablish contact with loved ones that were lost during the Civil War. But you can't make contact with loved ones. Demons will try to convince you that you're talking to your loved ones because they were there when they were alive on this earth, and they witnessed their lives. The most notable example would be when Mary Todd Lincoln, the president's wife, attempted to contact her son William by having numerous seances while living in the White House. Maybe that's one of the reasons why they say some rooms in the White House have spirit activity in them. The portal was open. Just like the belief in the extraterrestrial life, necromancy has ancient roots as well. The Bible condemns necromancy as an evil sin. That's why the life of King Saul was ended. Lynn Cato, C-A-T-O, former senior bibliographer for the Library of Congress, said in her 1969 report compiled for the U.S. Air Force of Scientific Research, she wrote, a large part of the available UFO literature is closely linked with mysticism, and the metaphysical deals with subjects like mental telepathy, automatic writing, and invisible identities, as well as phenomena like poltergeist, manifestations, and possessions. Many of the UFO reports now being published in popular press recount alleged incidents that are strikingly similar to demonic possession and psychic phenomenon, which have long been known to theologians and parapsychologists. Even an agnostic by the name of John Keel, K-E-E-L, came to the same general conclusion in his book, UFOs Operation Trojan Horse, published the following year in 1970. He said the connections are no accident. However, it served to help demonstrate that the gods and spirits of old form the true basis for their belief in intelligent life on other planets. Colonel John Henry Newman, who lived between 1801 and 1890, highly lauded ex-Calvinist turned Roman Catholic, said it almost amounts to a blasphemy to doubt the plurality of worlds. Ellen G. White, the founder of Seventh-day Adventists, who proclaimed the sinless intelligence of other worlds, science fiction was also beginning to have an impact on the belief, with Jules Verne and H.G. Wells, who published From the Earth to the Moon in 1865 and The War of the Worlds in 1897. Radio play and movie adaptations in the coming century were really having a profound impact on the public. H.G. Wells also authored The Island of Dr. Moreau in 1896, the novel which depicted the experimentation and crossbreeding of humans and animals, something we see commonly done today but not publicized to the masses. Wells also wrote the lesser-known The New World Order in 1940, where he wrote of his desire of socialist world society where armament should be an equality. Everywhere in some sort of international force should patrol a treaty-bound world. And then finally, of course, we got Charles Darwin, 1809 to 1882. The man responsible for turning an amoeba into a man. His theory of evolution by means of natural selection was revered as the holy grail for cosmic pluralists like ancient atomism, atomism. It represented a means to the end, the means how to spontaneously create life and to do away with a creator. Major changes regarding the belief in intelligent life on other planets were ushered in during the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. What was once an ancient philosophical guess became a mainstream. This theory wasn't the result of one single event, such as Roswell, but rather a combination of events in astronomy, heliocentrism technology, the telescope, and the religious thought, paganism, and occult doctrine. By the 20th century, the belief in extraterrestrial life was viewed as a strong likelihood by the fields of astronomy and biology. This persuasion was spearheaded by the growing theory of evolution by means of natural selection, and all of it was based on conjecture, assumption, and man's imagination. This is what the anti-Christian views are all based on, even to this day, and that's where I'm going to stop. And that's why I started in Hosea chapter 4, verse 6. My people are cut off. They're cut off from any of the, and I just briefly read to you the whole backstory of where all this extraterrestrial alien life came from. Oh, there was speculations prior into the 1600s, but nothing like what took off in the 16th, 17th, 18th century. And then by the time we got to the 19th century, all type of occults came into existence, and further along, the acceptance of, well, this imagination that we are using to create this theory must be true, because the probability of us just being alone in this universe is slim and none. Well, we know we're not alone. God created angels. He created other beings, all types of different angels. And he created angels that also fell and rebelled against God. And then we have watchers in the book of Enoch that saw how fair the woman of mankind was, and they wanted to procreate, and they came down, and their offspring produced giants. And those giants were wiped out, some before the flood and the remainder of them after the flood. And what happened to their spirits? They roamed this world. In the book of Enoch, it also says that. They roam this world seeking to deceive, seeking bodies, seeking a way to come back into this world to continue what they started. All under the command of Satan and his evil angelic army of generals that pull the strings on these demonics. My people are cut off for lack of knowledge. You believe anything that comes by. And I'm sure there's going to be information and investigations now that are open up, and they're going to use those things to try to further their agenda and having you believe, one, that God does not exist. God didn't create us. We are a byproduct of extraterrestrial life. And one popular theory is that these extraterrestrials created us as a project to see what they can do and how it would turn out as far as creating other life forms. And that's just one of many theories. But anyway, there's a lot of history behind all this, is what I'm trying to say. This is nothing new. This has been going on for centuries. The belief of extraterrestrials. But at least when they first started believing in extraterrestrials, some of them actually believed it was not so much people from outer space, but angelic beings that created these giants, these monsters, these half-breeds, and their spirits are now roams this earth. And God knows what vehicles they use in their transportation. Some of you need to re-listen to those early messages where I preached, was Satan a machine? Now, I'm not saying he was. We don't know what he was created like. We know he had many precious stones in his physical appearance, at least. And I don't want to go into any wild theories or anything what these beings are like. But I do want to suggest to you that they are real. They do exist. I do believe in aliens. But not extraterrestrial aliens from outer space, from far galaxies somewhere that somehow made their way here, and they're checking us out to see what we're like. They're checking us out to see if they could use us as resources for what they're trying to accomplish. And it's none of that, my friend. These are demonics. And I just briefly touched on all these subjects tonight and topics. But you know, if you're interested, for me to go into this a little bit more, let me know. And the only reason I'm bringing it up now, because that's all we see in the news now. Talk about these extraterrestrials. All we see, clip after clip on social media and even on television, UFOs. Are they real? Are there just advanced military vehicles in the sky that nobody knows about except the military? It's top secret stuff. Well, there's information about that too, if you know where to look. But I want to know if you're interested. If you are, let me know. I'll be back probably in 2 Timothy this coming Monday night. And if you're interested, periodically I'll touch on this, laying a few more layers down each time of why I believe what the real story is all about. The story that's not being told to you. If you're interested, let me know. Play a song.